Number 11. George TRACY. In June of 2020, water skiing enthusiast George TRACY died in an accident that involved the handle of his tow rope. 69-year-old TRACY was a lifelong water skier who, after retiring from the plumbing business he owned in Florida's Vero Beach, dedicated himself to the sport full-time. He took part in competitions and even earned prizes in his age group. TRACY's favorite spot was a small lake east of Interstate 95, which is where his fatal accident occurred. He was on his last lap, towed behind a 19-foot ski nautique boat, when he fell and his head got caught in the tow line handle, with the boat dragging TRACY behind it at roughly 32 miles per hour. The man suffered a broken neck. While rare, such accidents have occurred in the past, prompting water skiers to use guards on their handles. Number 10. Mike FLYNN. In February of 2014, Mike FLYNN was training for the Nautique Big Dog tournament in Guadalajara, Mexico. The 48-year-old was an experienced water skier who worked as an EMT and a firefighter. As he was cutting the water's surface at high speed, one of his skis became detached from its binding. FLYNN fell forward in the water, at which point the tip of his ski struck him in the face. FLYNN hadn't realized the severity of his injury until he went to the bathroom to clean the blood off his face. It was then that he noticed the bridge of his nose had become a gaping hole. It was mended through an 8-hour surgery, during which 84 screws were inserted into FLYNN's skull, along with mesh and webbing. Number 9. Sarah Tilo. Australian water skier Sarah Tilo had started competing since she was in her early teens, and in 2013, she won the Water Ski Racing World Championship. Unfortunately, that same year, the 20-year-old athlete would suffer a fatal accident. On November the 24th, she was taking part in a race on Hawkesbury River in North Sydney. Tilo passed under a railway bridge at about 85 miles per hour. Her boat driver then slowed down due to incoming minor waves. The water skier passed the first wave, but then suffered a devastating wipeout. She cartwheeled along the water with both her ski and helmet becoming detached. After on-site resuscitation attempts, Tilo was airlifted to Royal North Shore Hospital in critical condition. She was placed on life support but succumbed to her injuries later that day. The high-speed collision with the water's surface impacted her head and neck, causing internal decapitation. In medical terms, the injury is known as atlanto-occipital dislocation, and it describes a separation of the spinal column from the skull base. Less than a third of cases in which it occurs do not result in immediate death. Number 8. KARL Brooks. In 2007, British water skier KARL Brooks was in peak form as the reigning European champion and as the third-ranked water ski racer in the world. In June, he was training at Lake Mead, near Las Vegas, where he suffered a fatal wipeout. 25-year-old Brooks, who was referred to as the David Beckham of water skiing, fell while going anywhere from 80 to 100 miles per hour. To put that into perspective, Brooks had achieved a greater speed than the average fastball thrown in baseball. Since the water can't displace fast enough, impacting its surface at that speed is akin to hitting concrete. Brooks suffered severe head injuries. His teammates took him to shore, and a park ranger fought to save his life for 30 minutes, but he was ultimately pronounced dead. Number 7. Sue Erhardt. In 1977, Sue Erhardt and her friends decided to go water skiing at San Diego's Silver Strand. 31-year-old Erhardt had had a few runs when a boat malfunction resulted in her suffering a horrific injury. The shifting mechanism had failed, and as the driver powered the watercraft to go forward, it went into reverse. Erhardt was standing behind the boat at the time and was struck by its propeller. The woman's left leg was severed completely, while the rapidly rotating device also cut deeply into her right leg. She was rushed to a Coronado hospital, where doctors were able to save her life. After several months of hospitalization, Erhardt was cleared to return home. She was fitted with a prosthetic leg and gradually adapted to her new life, even becoming an avid golfer in her later years. Number 6. Unnamed teenager. In 2019, an unnamed Australian teenager was left in critical condition following a water skiing accident on the Cooks River in Sydney South. The 15-year-old was taking part in a pre-selection event for the World Racing Championships. His mother and grandmother were reportedly in the stands when the accident occurred. As the teenager was being towed on the water's surface, a second boat crashed into him. 4 ambulance crews arrived on site via helicopter and took him to St George Hospital with a fractured leg, a fractured arm, and extensive head injuries. Both boat drivers were taken to the hospital where they underwent mandatory tests for drugs or alcohol, and one of the boats was also towed by the police as part of the investigation. Number 5. Ryan Bergeron. Florida man Ryan Bergeron had started water skiing with his family at the age of 5. When he was only 13, he joined a performance troupe called the Sarasota Skieries. In the late 2000s, Bergeron took a job at a Brazilian theme park. In 2008, during the opening act of a performance, the 22-year-old was skiing barefoot and attempted a trick that involved flipping onto his back for a spin. Bergeron lost control during the turn and, as he let go of the tow rope, crashed into a seawall. He was rushed to a hospital with devastating injuries to his spinal cord. About a week later, doctors told him that he'd never walk again. Bergeron was hospitalized in Brazil for roughly a month as he recovered from spinal cord surgery. He would then undergo physical therapy in Atlanta. Even though he was unable to use his legs, Bergeron wanted to water ski again. He contacted an organization called You Can Ski Too, which taught skiing to people with disabilities. Bergeron learned to use a sit ski, a wakeboard with an aluminum cage that held his body in a tucked and seated position. After only a few sessions, he was reportedly capable of doing 360-degree turns. Number 4. Tony van Deursen. In 2011, Tony van Deursen, a champion water skier, died during a race on New Zealand's Lake Taupo. At the time, 57-year-old van Deursen was competing in the Masters class of a national series. He'd reportedly reached speeds of over 95 miles per hour before he took a brutal fall and instantly broke his neck. Van Deursen passed away in the emergency room of Taupo Hospital. Only months before his tragic demise, his daughter, Olivia, had been involved in a similar accident. The 34-year-old, who held 10 national racing titles, narrowly avoided death and paralysis after she broke her neck. She recovered rapidly and returned to the sport. Olivia was training in Auckland at the time of her father's passing, and in the aftermath, stated an intention of permanently retiring from water ski racing. Number 3. Tim Driver. In 2010, a water skier lost his life following a crash at the Southern 80 event on the Murray River in Australia. The race, held annually on the second weekend in February, attracts hundreds of competitors from all over the world. The accident occurred only a few minutes into the tandem race portion of the event. 43-year-old driver and his partner, also in his early 40s, both lost control after rounding a bend. As driver let go of the rope, he overbalanced, and a ski struck him in the chest at high speed. His partner collided with the riverbank and sustained a broken collarbone, from which he ultimately recovered. Driver's injuries were severe, and after paramedics attempted to revive him for 45 minutes, he was pronounced dead at the scene. Aside from his fatal accident, the 2010 edition of Southern 80 was marred by several severe injuries. Among the reported incidents were 2 skiers who'd suffered broken legs and 2 others that had sustained neck injuries. Today's topic was requested by Kaz Aussie Yarnaholic. If you have any other topics you'd like to learn about, subscribe and let us know in the comments section below. Number 2. David Perrotto. The tragic passing of Tim Driver was just one of several deaths reported throughout the Southern 80 water ski race's history. A few years prior, in 2007, David Perrotto had entered a hairpin bend described as being among the worst sections of the race. The 36-year-old racer lost control after hitting a sandbar at high speed. He was launched in front of his skis and fell face first into waist-deep water. A local man saw the accident, which occurred about 50 feet from the river's edge. He went into the water and found Perrotto floating face down, with blood pooling around him. The rescuer and his wife, who was a nurse, performed resuscitation until paramedics arrived in an ambulance helicopter. Unfortunately, Perrotto's injuries proved too extensive and he died before he could receive further medical support. Number 1. Amber Rangel. On July the 27th of 2014, Amber Rangel, a world-class barefoot water skier, was training for an upcoming competition. The 19-year-old was a defending champion in the trick section of the US Barefoot National Water Ski Championship. During her practice session, she suffered a life-altering accident while attempting a jump. On the approach, Rangel tripped on the water and lost her grip on the tow rope handle. She crashed head first into the ramp while going approximately 43 miles per hour. Had she not been wearing a helmet, Rangel would have most likely died on the spot. She bounced off the ramp and went flying several feet into the air. She'd broken her neck in several places and severely injured her left arm. Because of a C5 spinal cord injury, Rangel became a quadriplegic with only limited movement in her arms. Determined to return to the water, the young woman took up scuba diving less than a year later. She managed to do so through an organization called Dive Heart that specialized in adapting the activity for people with cognitive and physical disabilities. Her newfound passion eventually took Rangel to diving expeditions in Mexico, Honduras, and Iceland. Thanks for watching. Would you attempt a high-speed water ski jump with no prior training for $5,000? Let us know in the comments section below.